So it is December 4th of 2023, which means that it's been almost 3 full months since Starfield released on the Xbox Series X and Game Pass for PC and Xbox platforms. A very polarizing game, a game that I have not talked about almost at all on this channel. And I'm actually excited to do so because even though I spend, 98% of my time on this channel talking about Nintendo-related stuff because they are my favorite company and the Switch is my favorite console on the market, don't forget that I am actually a fan of all the consoles and I'm playing on all platforms very regularly. And so this is a great opportunity for me to finally talk about a very polarizing and debated topic when it comes to the gaming industry in 2023, which of course just simply is the game, Starfield. So the general crux of today's conversation has to do with exactly why the game has turned out to be so divisive. Like I said in the intro here, this is a game that has people so divided and so at each other's freaking throats online that it's crazy, especially for, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, for me, watching people go at each other's throats, it's strange because I love the game. I have no problem admitting that it is a game I think is really fantastic. Now, is it the revolutionary game-changing, messiah of all video games? No, it's not that. In some ways, you could definitely say it's maybe not even what they promised it would be. But I also think part of that comes from just the fan base in general, hyping up the game for so long, the fact that it took so long for the game to even be made, which kind of plays into why it is seen the way it is. But it is a game that, whether it's revolutionary or not, I simply loved playing from front to back. I still go back and revisit it occasionally. I was playing it a little bit last night because I like going back to that world. However, it should be noted that the point of my conversation about this game today isn't to make a case for liking the game if you don't like the game. I'm not trying to convince anyone to feel the same way about Starfield as I do, because to be honest, I don't really care if somebody doesn't like the game. If you don't like the game or you didn't find it interesting or you did play it and realized it wasn't fun for you, that's fine. I'm not trying to, again, make a case for why I think Starfield is good and you should also think Starfield is good. We can all feel however we want about the game. I just wanted to let you know that my perspective on the game is I think it's super fun. And so to get down to brass tacks on this game and why I think it's so divisive, in a couple of ways I already touched on it. Because it is a game that took so stinking long to develop. It was confirmed by Bethesda and Todd Howard, I don't even know how many years ago. And then it was, I think, E3 2018, I want to say, so in the range of 5 or so years ago, when they first revealed that kind of teaser on stage, Bethesda did, at an E3 show. This is, pre-COVID, pre-E3 shutting down, when people used to go in person to E3. The good old days, in my opinion. I loved that era, but it's over now. However, it was around 5 years ago when they showed that kind of teaser with the logo, and they're like, hey, you've been playing Fallout 4 for a couple of years, you've heard about Starfield, here's a little 30-second tease that really didn't show us anything significant to just confirm this is our next big game, and you'll see it soon. And truly, in my opinion, I think one of the things that played into the massive hype around the game is simply that fact, that it took them so long to make that game, and Bethesda notoriously makes very impactful, popular, huge games that every time they release, everyone pays attention to them for a while. Skyrim was like a seminal changing moment. Whether you love or hate Skyrim, as far as just the size and the impact of that release, culturally, it's considered like a benchmark release, right? And so every time they release a game, it's a big deal. They do take a lot of time between games to release their games, and yes, they're buggy, and so you can criticize them for all those reasons. I don't care if you criticize them. But I think because of that, when you then look at the gap from Fallout 4, which was their prior game, to the very long development and slow drip feeding of information to the eventual release of Starfield this year, people had massive expectations. And in that time, we transitioned from the 8th generation, Xbox and PlayStation consoles to the current consoles with the Xbox Series X and S. And we can't even forget to mention that in the time between their last game, Fallout 4, and the release of Starfield, Microsoft also purchased Bethesda. So that added so much fuel to the fire of the growing, fanboy debates and the online console war, stuff that I think is just so stupid and embarrassing when people get, really heated and, shitty towards each other over these kinds of things, but it is what it is, and we all know that. And so there's so much going into that huge gap between Fallout 4 and Starfield, changing generations, Microsoft purchasing Bethesda, the console war and the online debates around the popularity of things and the quality of things just grew exponentially, and people got so much more heated about their feelings about games in that time that by the time it was ready for the doors to be blown open on Starfield, when they gave us that Starfield Direct, 45-minute presentation earlier this year, hype was at an all-time high. And again, I include myself as one of them because I am a fan of the Bethesda games I've played. I barely played Morrowind. I played a lot of Oblivion and loved it. I loved Skyrim. I loved Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4. I like Fallout 4. I know some people think that that's the bad one. I really like Fallout 4. So, I've really not played a Bethesda game of that style that I haven't liked. There have been other games that haven't really worked for me, but by and large, the games that are in those Elder Scrolls Fallout kind of world and ilk, and Starfield is now one of them based on its style, I do love those games. And so I was part of the hype cycle, not so much in trying to spread the hype, just for me internally, pretty quietly. I didn't talk about it a whole lot online and obviously on YouTube. I was like, yeah, this game is going to be great. I love Bethesda's games. I liked Fallout 4, so I'm stoked to see them go into space with their next game and do whatever they're going to do. And so then we get to the release. We come to September 2023. Bethesda is now owned by Microsoft. The game is available for sale, but also available on Game Pass on Xbox and PC platforms. So it's got all of these different elements going into it, and almost 10 years worth of hype and excitement for this game to finally be released. Like I said, console wars heated up. People are very passionate about debating things and sometimes super toxic about their debates. And a lot of people, the super duper fanboys and the super duper Xbox fans, were so defensive of this game and refused to believe that it wouldn't be the greatest game-changing moment ever that they got really defensive about their feelings. And then the people who overcompensate in the other direction, who are so pro-PlayStation or so anti-Xbox or whatever, and who just want to find reasons to be upset about something or make fun of somebody else or whatever, Starfield comes out, and it's a good game, but it's not a 97 on Metacritic game-changing revolutionary game. And so they have their own ways to kind of go at people's throats over this game. And so you've got the people who are overly defensive, and you got the people who are overly hating. And we've lost a lot of the middle ground of just looking at it as a game for what it is. And yes, there was a lot of hype and maybe too much development time, and it's not a perfect game. But because of that, it comes out and it's just a pretty good game. I think the 85 to 88 kind of rankings that we've seen out there is an appropriate rating objectively. And people aren't willing to see that. And so because there's so many folks online nowadays that have to have an agenda of overly compensating in support of the thing you like or overcompensating in trying to tear down the thing you don't like, that Starfield just became this zeitgeist lightning rod game. It became the target game. I mean, I guess there's a few other ones that released this year, like Zelda and Spider-Man 2, but I really think Starfield has been the biggest one to release this year this way, maybe even this generation. It became the lightning rod game. And so everyone went to Starfield and said, I super love it, it's the greatest thing ever, and you're dumb if you hate it, or it's so bad, it's really buggy, they wasted our time for 10 years, and you're dumb if you like it. That's what the conversation, unfortunately, has been reduced to. And so ultimately, those are just the whys. That's the why as I see it now, and as I have seen it over the years up to the release of the game. That's the why as far as why people are so upset about this game, whether they're defending it or whether they're hating on it. And both are valid, by the way. You can love it or you can super dislike it. But that's why it's so heated and why the game itself has just found itself at the center of controversies. And that even extends to the media and YouTubers and gaming news outlets and the way they report things like the player base has dwindled so the game isn't a success, even though the game is a single player game, so live players isn't really a metric you would gauge it off of. That's just a recent example. There's been a lot of sensationalist headlines and YouTube videos and stuff made leading up to the game and since the game has released. Then the Game Awards nominations gets announced and it's not nominated for Game of the Year, so that becomes more fodder for people to get angry over their feelings about Starfield. And, it's kind of a repetitive topic to keep giving examples on why this game is so controversial, but like I said, these are the whys. And so to kind of start to wrap this up and just bring this back to my feelings, you know, I put in probably 40 to 50 or so hours. I'm just guessing 40 to 50 hours when I played it from beginning to the end of the main mission. And I had to force myself to beat the main mission because two of my buddies had beaten it, and one of them really loved it and kept wanting to talk to me about how the game wrapped up. And he was like, come on, dude, like, please finish this game so we can talk about it. And I didn't want to go to the end final mission, but I didn't mind. He's one of my best buddies. So it's like, sure, I can play this game even after I've beaten it, so I don't care. So I pushed myself to just finish the main missions, and I liked the story more than I expected. 40 or so hours, 50 hours, whatever, for me to beat that mission. I really liked it. But more than that, and this is just my opinion again, I'm not trying to convince you, I'm just sharing my thoughts. I liked the game's exploration. I think the exploration is better than some people gave it credit for. I liked being able to fly to different planets, and the space travel isn't like Starlink where you can literally fly in real time from planet to planet or solar system to solar system. And I guess in some ways that's a shame, but from my experience, when I settled into the groove and the rhythm of how you travel in space and land on planets and explore things and do missions, it just clicked with me, and it clicked with me early on. A lot of people said it took like 15 hours for the game to get good. For me, that wasn't the case. I actually pretty much liked it from the jump. And I land on random planets sometimes, and yeah, I just walk around. Having a vehicle would be nice, sure, but I don't mind walking around. I can see things in the distance, mark them on my scanner thing, walk to them. I find settlements, I find pirate camps, I find, you know, foliage to scan or whatever, caves to go in. And like, is it as much of a discovery kind of game as an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout? No, it's not that much of a discovery game. But what they built and the ways they made that style of game unique for space exploration, I liked, because it's both similar to the Elder Scrolls and Fallout games, but also very unique simply because it's a space travel game with tons of planets to explore. And overall, I think they made it work really well. And so that's why I personally really liked the game and my time with it. So not a whole lot more to say about it, really. These are just my thoughts as I see it, as far as why the game was so controversial and why people are so at each other's throats about this game even still. And probably for the next year or two, it's going to be a game that every once in a while gets brought up and people start fighting with each other over whether it's good or bad, or if you're dumb, if you like or dislike it, or whatever the conversation continues to be. And maybe more sensationalist, inaccurate headlines come out about the game, you know, skewing it in one way or another, either for the game or against the game. It can't just be a game that exists as it is, and it works for some people, it doesn't work for others. That's how all games are, that's how all movies are and TV shows. No one loves everything forever, and it's just, to me, another game that released that I happen to love, but I totally understand why other people maybe don't love it, because I can acknowledge it's not a revolutionary video game. It's just, to me, a really good video game that works for my gameplay styles and my tastes. I actually tweeted about this after I finished the main mission, that I think objectively, I would review it in that 85 to 88 range. You know, 8.5, 8.8 is what I would review it objectively. Now, my enjoyment of the game, if I was to skew it based on my own personal feelings and experience, I would rate it like a 9.2 or a 9.3, based on how much fun I had with the game. So I wish that was something people could do more often with these things. Objectively, if you had to review professionally, maybe you would rate this game with this score, but you can also take your own personal enjoyment and rate it with this score. And one is probably going to be higher than the other. Maybe they match up and that's the ideal situation, but that's not usually the case. And I just wish more people could do that, you know? Like, so anyway, I'm rambling at this point. Time to end this video. I enjoyed talking about this because I haven't talked about a non-Nintendo game at length in a while. And I do love Starfield, so it's fun to talk about it. It's an interesting situation to dissect. Share your feelings on it. That's about it. And I'll see you next time.